What if the person you are crying over is the very person God is asking you to release? Sometimes the hardest goodbye in life is not losing someone because they stopped loving you. It is realizing that God may be removing them because He sees something you cannot see. You may have prayed for that relationship to work. You may have asked God to change their heart. You may have replayed old conversations, wondering what you did wrong. But sometimes the ending is not a punishment. Sometimes the ending is protection. There are moments when God closes a relationship because He knows where that relationship would eventually lead. You may only see the memories, but God sees the future. You may remember the good moments, but God sees what is happening beneath the surface. You may be asking, why did God let them leave? But another question may be more important. What is God protecting me from by allowing them to go? The Bible tells us in Proverbs 3 verse 5 to trust in the Lord with all your heart and not lean entirely on your own understanding. That becomes difficult when your heart wants an explanation. You want to know why they changed. You want to know why the friendship ended. You want to know why someone you thought would stay suddenly walked away. But God does not always give you an explanation before He asks you to trust Him. Sometimes faith means walking through a door that closed without knowing what is behind the next one. Think about Abraham. God called Abraham to leave the place he knew and step toward a destination God had not fully revealed. Abraham had to move before he understood everything. Your life may have a similar season. God may be asking you to move forward before you understand why something had to end. And here is something you need to remember. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to remain there forever. Some people are part of a season. Some people teach you something. Some people help you grow. Some people reveal parts of your heart that needed healing. And some relationships simply reach their God-allowed ending. That does not mean the person was completely bad. It does not mean every memory was fake. It does not mean you should hate them. It means you can appreciate what was good while still accepting that the season is over. This is where many people become trapped. They keep praying for God to restore something He may be asking them to release. They keep looking backward while God is calling them forward. They keep asking for the old door to open while God is preparing a completely different door. Maybe your greatest mistake is not that you lost them. Maybe it is believing that you cannot have a future without them. God is not limited by one person. Your purpose is not dependent on one relationship. Your future is not destroyed because someone walked away. If God removed something from your life, He can also restore what was lost in a healthier and better way. And sometimes what God gives you next will make you understand why He could not allow you to stay where you were. Joseph experienced rejection from people who should have protected him. His own brothers betrayed him and sold him. Imagine how confusing that must have felt. Yet what looked like rejection became part of the road that eventually led Joseph into a position of influence. The people who pushed Joseph away did not have the final word over Joseph's life. God did. And the same God who remained with Joseph in the pit remained with him in the palace. So if someone has recently left your life, do not immediately assume that God has abandoned you. God may be doing work you cannot see yet. He may be separating you from what is familiar so you can recognize what is healthy. He may be removing a distraction so you can hear His voice more clearly. He may be breaking an unhealthy attachment so your identity can become rooted in Him instead of another person. And sometimes God removes people because you have been trying to find in them what only God can provide. No human being can carry the weight of being your entire source of security, worth, peace, and identity. That belongs to God. So let yourself grieve. You do not have to pretend that losing someone does not hurt. Bring the pain to God. Cry if you need to cry. Pray when you do not have the words. Tell God exactly what your heart is feeling. But do not build a permanent home inside a temporary season. There is still life ahead of you. There are still prayers you have not seen answered. There are still places God can take you. There are still people you have not met. There are still chapters of your story that have not been written. Psalm 34 verse 18 says that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. That means your broken heart is not evidence that God is far away. It may actually become the place where you experience His presence more deeply. One day, you may look back at the relationship you desperately wanted to keep and realize that God was answering a prayer you did not know how to pray. You may discover that the goodbye you hated became the beginning of your healing. You may understand that the closed door was not the end of your story. It was the beginning of a different chapter. So stop asking God to force someone to stay if He is giving you grace to let them go. Stop chasing what God is releasing. Stop measuring your worth by who chooses you. You are already known by God. You are already loved by God. And your future is still safely in His hands. If God is removing someone from your life, trust Him enough to release what you cannot control. You do not have to understand everything today. You only need to trust the one who can see tomorrow. What feels like loss today may become the space where God builds something you could never have imagined. So breathe. Let go. Forgive what you need to forgive. Learn what you need to learn. And walk forward with God. Because when God closes a door, He is never limited to the room you just left. Your story is not over. God is still writing it. And if you trust Him, you may one day thank Him for the goodbye you once begged Him to prevent. If this message spoke to your heart, subscribe and stay connected for more faith-filled messages that remind you that God is still working, even when you cannot see it.